China's military budget has nearly quadrupled since 2000, building a navy larger than America's and more than 300 new nuclear missile silos in fields once used for farming. Xi Jinping vows reunification with Taiwan, his generals rehearsing its capture. This is not modernization, this is mobilization. Analysts warn Beijing's preparations signal a readiness for conflict by 2027. What tipped China from deterrence to potential war, and is America ready to respond? Official Chinese defense spending has climbed from about $17 billion in 2000 to over $232 billion in 2024, according to government figures. But independent estimates, factoring in hidden costs like off-budget research, paramilitary forces and pensions, place the real total far higher, ranging from $314 billion by SIPRI to as much as $471 billion using purchasing power parity. That means China's military outlays now rival or surpass the combined defense budgets of Japan, India, South Korea, and Russia. For 9 consecutive years, annual increases have topped 7%, even as China's economy slowed and other sectors faced cuts. The result is the largest sustained military buildup since World War II. Much of this money is fueling a relentless expansion of the People's Liberation Army Navy. In 2005, China had about 216 warships. By 2024, that number has surged past 370, making the plan the largest navy in the world by hull count, outpacing the US Navy's 290 ships and dwarfing the Royal Navy's fleet. Satellite imagery of Jiangnan and Dalian shipyards shows new destroyers sliding into the water every 2 to 3 months, a tempo unmatched by any rival. Since 2020 alone, China has launched more than a dozen destroyers, while the US Navy added none. The scale is visible across all classes. Stealth fighters, heavy bombers, and amphibious ships roll off assembly lines in steady waves, with J-20 stealth fighters and Y-20 transports produced by the dozens each year. This is not modernization, this is mobilization. The pace, scale, and focus of China's buildup point to preparation for a conflict far larger than regional policing or routine deterrence. The question no longer centers on whether China is preparing for war, but rather on how soon it believes it will need to fight. China's nuclear arsenal has more than doubled in just 4 years. Pentagon estimates now place the number of operational warheads above 600, up from around 200 before 2020. Satellite imagery confirms the construction of over 300 new missile silos across the deserts of Xinjiang and Gansu, many already operational. These silos are designed for the DF-41 intercontinental ballistic missile, a weapon with a range of up to 13,000 kilometers, enough to reach any city in the continental United States in 30 minutes. In July 2021, China tested a hypersonic glide vehicle that orbited the globe before striking its target, a demonstration that US officials described as a Sputnik moment. The message is clear: China is abandoning minimal deterrence for nuclear parity with America, but the threat is not limited to strategic weapons alone. The flashpoint lies just 100 miles off China's coast. In September 2023, 158 Chinese military aircraft crossed the Taiwan Strait median line in a single day, shattering previous records. PLA units have rehearsed assaults on full-scale replicas of Taiwan's presidential office and Taoyuan Airport, built deep inside Chinese territory. Satellite images show these mock targets scarred by live-fire drills, with entire PLA brigades practicing coordinated attacks. Xi Jinping has declared that reunification with Taiwan must be realized and cannot be passed down from generation to generation. CIA Director William Burns reports that Xi has ordered the PLA to be ready for an invasion or blockade by 2027. US wargames warn that without full-scale intervention, Taiwan could fall within weeks. The scale of China's nuclear and conventional buildup is not routine modernization. It is systematic preparation for a conflict that could begin with Taiwan but would not end there. China's approach to military readiness extends far beyond weapons and warships. Over the past decade, Beijing has quietly amassed enormous stockpiles of food, fuel, and industrial minerals, building a buffer against the kind of economic siege that would accompany a major war. Satellite images show sprawling grain silos across the countryside, with reserves now estimated to cover at least 18 months of national consumption, an unprecedented cushion in modern history. The country's strategic petroleum reserves have also expanded sharply, now holding enough crude to cover more than 100 days of imports, up from just a month's supply a decade ago. This is not just about weathering supply disruptions, it's about ensuring the People's Liberation Army can keep fighting if global markets shut down. The same logic drives China's dominance in rare earth elements, materials essential for missiles, jet engines, and electronics. Today, Chinese firms control roughly 90% of global rare earth processing. That grip on the supply chain gives Beijing leverage not just in peacetime, but in the event of sanctions or blockades. In 2022, the People's Daily called on the nation to prepare for a protracted struggle, a phrase repeated in official speeches and state media ever since. The message is clear: China is building the capacity to outlast economic pressure and keep its war machine running, no matter how long the conflict endures. China's military buildup is powered by an industrial machine running at wartime speed. The country's shipyards now outproduce their American counterparts by a staggering 200-to-1 in tonnage. Jiangnan and Dalian churn out warships at a pace unmatched in the modern era, with new destroyers sliding down the ways every 2 to 3 months. At the Chengdu Aircraft Corporation, J-20 stealth fighters roll off the line at a rate of about 40 per year, so quickly that jets are often parked waiting for pilots to catch up. Across the country, the defense sector operates in overdrive, with artillery factories receiving orders for 5,000 guns in a single contract, and assembly lines running around the clock. Civilian industry is woven tightly into this mobilization. SMIC, China's top chipmaker, has begun producing 7-nanometer semiconductors for military use, sidestepping Western sanctions with homegrown technology. BYD, the world's largest electric vehicle manufacturer, has retooled production lines to switch from civilian vehicles to military trucks and drones in a matter of days. This is not a peacetime economy. As one Chinese defense official put it, every factory is a potential arsenal. Result is an industrial base primed to sustain high-intensity conflict. Hardware rolls out of factories faster than it can be absorbed into units, closing the gap between production and force readiness. This surge in output is not just about building capacity, it's about preparing for a war that Beijing increasingly sees as possible, and perhaps even imminent. Chinese warships and aircraft now rehearse for battle in full view of the world. In April 2023, the carrier Shandong led a live-fire drill east of Taiwan, launching fighters and bombers in coordinated sorties. PLA rocket force units paraded the DF-21D and DF-26, so-called carrier killers, while state television broadcast footage of missiles streaking over the Pacific. These are not symbolic gestures. During the joint sword exercises, entire brigades practiced amphibious landings and missile strikes, simulating a blockade and invasion with precision rarely seen outside wartime. US intelligence is watching the clock. Admiral Philip Davidson, former commander of Indo-Pacific Command, warned Congress that China could be ready to take Taiwan by force as soon as 2027. The year is no accident. It marks the centennial of the People's Liberation Army, a milestone Xi Jinping has tied to full combat readiness. Pentagon analysts now estimate a 70% probability that Beijing will have the capability to launch a major operation against Taiwan by that date. As the drills intensify and missile tests grow bolder, the window for a peaceful resolution appears to be closing fast. American planners are racing to close the gap, but the numbers tell a stark story. The US has secured access to 9 military sites across the Philippines, stretching from Luzon to Palawan, each chosen to complicate China's calculus in the event of a Taiwan crisis. On Guam, 5 new missile defense batteries are being installed to shield key bases, and the Pentagon is pushing to harden airfields and stockpile munitions across the Pacific. The AUKUS Pact promises Australia 3 nuclear-powered submarines, with the first rotations slated for the late 2020s, aiming to thicken the Allied undersea presence along vital sea lanes. Washington has also approved $19 billion in arms sales to Taiwan, everything from Harpoon missiles to new F-16s, yet delivery lags stretch for years. Meanwhile, the US shipbuilding industry faces a 30-month timeline to produce a single destroyer, while Chinese yards launch new warships in a fraction of the time. Deputy Secretary of Defense Kathleen Hicks put it plainly, America's security depends on our ability to out-innovate and out-produce any rival. For now, the gap remains. The question is no longer if China is preparing for war, it is whether America is prepared to stop it. Concrete evidence from Pentagon warhead estimates to Admiral Davidson's 2027 deadline shows this is not routine modernization, it's systematic mobilization. The question is no longer if China is preparing for war, it's whether America is prepared to stop it. That answer will define the decade ahead. Share your perspective below.